Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining me. We have a fantastic, awesome show planned for you today, as we always do. Brett Favre will be here. Steve Kim, the Korean co-sell. Shemeka Michelle is going to sit in for Virgil on Tennessee Harmony with Anthony. I've got a terrific fire starter for you. I need you guys to start pounding that like button if you're watching over YouTube. Hit the subscriptions. Make sure you're getting the notifications. If you're listening over Apple, I need you to once again spam them with the 5-star review. We got to continue to fight the algorithm and the people that are fighting the other direction, trying to give us those 1-star reviews. Small thing you can do. Write a review of the show on Apple, just a few words saying hello. Tell us what you think about any of the conversations we've been having this week or conversations you want us to have. Your thoughts on the show, do all of that. And then I'm going to reward you all with a terrific fire starter and a great show. Before we do the fire starter, guys, I want to talk to you about our purpose and one of our favorite sponsors. You guys know Preborn. According to a recent study, hundreds of post-abortive women, 60% of them reported that they would have preferred to give birth if they had received more support from others and had more financial security. And that's where Preborn steps in. Preborn is the best organization, the best group supporting women who are considering abortion by providing them with an ultrasound that introduces them to that life growing inside of them, introduces them to that heartbeat, image of the baby. Once a woman hears that heartbeat, sees that baby in the womb, she is now twice as likely to keep that baby. And that's when Preborn really steps in and steps up and supports that woman, that mother, through the pregnancy and through the first 2 years of that baby's life. You guys have seen Dan Steiner, the founder of Preborn, on this show. We've vetted him. We've checked him out. I've introduced you to him. We know where our money goes. It doesn't go to pay for mid-level executives so they can have 6-figure salaries and all that. The money that we give to Preborn pays for ultrasounds and some of the aftercare, after birth things that women need and that baby needs in the first 2 years of its life. There's nothing we can do more to support our worldview, our belief that life begins at conception than supporting Preborn. A couple of ways to do it. Pound 250 on your phone, say the keyword baby, or you can go to preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. Whether you give $28, which is the cost of an individual ultrasound, or whether you give $28,000, it all goes to a great cause. It all supports our worldview that life begins at conception. Please support Preborn. Now, I'm going to support you all with a terrific fire starter. I don't think Dana White and the UFC sold out. Bud Light did. Anheuser-Busch did. Anheuser-Busch forking over more than $100 million in advertising dollars to America's most masculine sport. That's what victory looks like in the gender and sexuality culture war. Yesterday, Bud Light and Dana White announced they were renewing their partnership. Bud Light had been one of the original sponsors of the UFC. In recent years, Modelo replaced Bud Light as the beer sponsor of White's Mixed Martial Arts League. According to a source familiar with the deal, Bud Light doubled the amount Modelo was paying, agreeing to pay the UFC approximately $25 million per year over 6 years. That's victory. This is victory. We took a scalp. We forced the diversity, equity, and inclusion gods to wave a white flag of surrender inside a major corporation. We pillaged Bud Light's marketing department. Dylan Mulvaney's favorite beer brand capitulated, and it did so rather quickly. It was just 7 months ago that Bud Light partnered with Mulvaney, a transgender activist, during March Madness. The brand splashed Mulvaney's face on a Bud Light can. Mulvaney put the picture out over social media. Outrage ensued, and then a boycott kicked off. Rocker Kid Rock filmed himself shooting cans of Bud Light with an AR-15 in his backyard. Sales of Bud Light dipped 30%. Anheuser-Busch stock plummeted. The company has been scrambling ever since to plug the gaping wound created by its desire to embrace the LGBTQIA plus alphabet mafia. Bud Light cut NFL star Travis Kelce a check to pitch the beer. That didn't work. Football fans roasted Kelce for selling out. I'm sure some people will criticize Dana White for bailing out the troubled beer, but I disagree. The record sponsorship deal for the UFC is a win for America First and MAGA. Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light are not going away. I want them spending their money with businesses that reflect their customer base. Dylan Mulvaney doesn't drink Bud Light. He probably drinks pina coladas and cosmopolitans. Dana White and UFC fans drink beer and support the kind of rugged masculinity that is under attack in America. Dana White released a statement yesterday. Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light were UFC's original beer sponsors more than 15 years ago. I'm proud to announce we are back in business together. There are many reasons why I chose to go with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, most importantly because I feel we are very aligned when it comes to core values and what the UFC brand stands for. The boycott, that outrage, that boycott that we sparked, that realigned Bud Light's values. I don't think White and the UFC realigned theirs. Why would they? They've cornered the sports market on masculinity. The NFL is transitioning into a powder puff league. Every Sunday, we see more and more examples that Roger Goodell's league prioritizes safety above competition, female fans above men, the alphabet mafia ahead of traditional values. This week, the NFL flagged a defensive tackle for gently shoving quarterback Jalen Hurts and suspended a Denver Broncos safety for a routine hit. The NBA, they came out of the closet years ago. This week, Adam Silver's league celebrated its first non-binary referee, Che Flores. The she-turned-he uses they-them pronouns and wants to be a role model for kids. The leaders of the NFL are praying for the day when a woman or transgender person competes in their league. ESPN would love nothing more than to showcase two transgenders celebrating a football victory while cuddling in a hot tub. Meanwhile, Dana White is holding the line. Listen to what he told Piers Morgan when asked about the transgender issue. The last part actually isn't true. The Carolina Panthers, they have a transgender cheerleader. Yeah, the NFL, transgender cheerleader. Look, I'm not the hugest mixed martial arts fan. When it comes to combat sports, I still prefer the sweet science of boxing. But I'm a big supporter of Dana White and what the UFC represents. White has never backed down from publicly backing Donald Trump. White is authentic. I trust what I hear from him. I value authenticity above most everything else. Men have lost their authenticity. Dana White hasn't. The entire Bud Light scenario has shown us the way forward. We have to stand our ground as men. Eventually, the sellouts and feminists will crawl back to us to restore their credibility. That's what happened here. Bud Light folded. Not Dana White and not the UFC. That's my fire starter. And it's my inspiration today. And I needed this story yesterday when it came out. I needed it. It re-energized me and makes me even more sure that, again, if we really want to make an impact, if we really want to let corporate America know how we feel, and then have them come to heel, and then to have them reverse course and hop on board with our agenda. My Super Bowl boycott idea is superb. It is the silver bullet. I explained to you guys a few weeks ago about if we protest in Washington, D.C., they'll criminalize us, and then they'll sick one of those all-Democrat juries on us and throw us under a jail. Obviously, corporate media is not going to speak for the working man and woman. We have no other choice. And this Bud Light thing, and I know there are people that I respect, I like Liz Wheeler, Robbie Starbuck, that have been critical of Dana White here for bailing out Bud Light. I don't think he bailed out Bud Light. I think he took advantage of the opportunity that we created. And this is a good thing, that we bullied Bud Light into taking its money, close to $150 million, and have them throw it behind the most masculine sport in America and the most masculine commissioner, runner of a sports league in America. Dana White isn't Adam Silver. He's not Roger Goodell. He's not a sellout. Dana White is someone who has stood on his values, whether you like them or not. He has stood on them. He's owned his position. He's refused to back down. Friends with Trump still, not going to apologize for it. All these other cowards, all these other phony commissioners and executives in the sports world who know damn well they have no problem with Donald Trump. None of them man enough to do what Dana White did. And for those of you that your wife, girlfriend, your minister, your church, whoever has convinced you that Donald Trump is the end of the world and he's evil and oh my God, you got to avoid him. Do they take that same stand on the transgender issue? And the politicians and the people who support that? This is where hats off to Dana White. Because, many of you all can sit around and color code how you see the world. I make choices based on values. This man having the courage as a commissioner of a league and with all the corporate pressure for him not to bow to the transgender, the alphabet mafia. Never going to back me up off of Dana White. Bud Light is going to exist. They're going to spend money with some company. Why not celebrate the fact they're spending it with the UFC? And look, I prefer boxing. But I get what the UFC is selling. I get what Dana White is selling. He knows that masculinity is under such attack and there's such a shortage of masculinity. He's going to sell you masculinity in its rawest form. Mixed martial arts, that whole slap league he's got going on or whatever. He's just selling you toxic masculinity. And I would rather have toxic masculinity than no masculinity. Hats off to Dana White. All friends of mine that are being critical of Dana White, rethink your position. How do we want these things to end? Shouldn't people... Bud Light hopped on board briefly with this transgender thing, and now they are backing away from that. They're repenting, and they just gave Dana White reparations. Why shouldn't we celebrate that? Let's don't be leftists and cancel everybody forever. If people back off, repent, and address their mistakes, we should celebrate that. And tell other companies, hey, you do the same thing. Target. Hop on board with Dana White or whomever, or hop on board with initiatives that support the development of men. Do that. Do that. I would love to see any company, and again, I hate to color code things, but I'm just going to keep it real. Black young men are struggling. Every statistic, everything shows this. Show me any company that has a legitimate program that's about the development of young black men. You can't find it. Everything's about developing young black women. Every promise that Joe Biden and the left makes is about women, 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 women this. Who's struggling the most? Young black men. Nothing directed at them. One of these woke companies wants to hop on board and show me something. Do something to support heterosexual, young Christian black men. I'll settle for just heterosexual black men. Do something to support them. Any man, any heterosexual man, a program just for heterosexual men. Would love to see it. I will accept that apology and forgive all your past sins. We're going to bring Steve Kim on next. Hey, make sure you guys are going to tune in on November 2nd, the Gold Jacket edition of the Fearless Army Cookout. Brett Favre, Warren Sapp, Marshall Falk, Brian Urlacher, all in town. You can get tickets for this event, fearlessarmytickets.com, fearlessarmytickets.com. You can come join us for the live taping, eat some food with us, hang out with some Hall of Famers as we talk a little football. That's on Thursday, November 2nd. We're 8 days away from that. Come join us. Come have some fun. Steve Kim, Korean Cosell, next.
It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Jason Whitlock, previously on Fearless.
You control your destiny, particularly here in America. There's no other place on the planet more opportunity rich for black people than here in America. You point that out and, oh my God, you're a sellout. It's one of those deals where and I think you've said, but it's like, I reject. My skin color is so unimportant to me at this point. It's never been less important to me than at any point in my life than right now. And it's because everybody else is trying to make it the most important thing is why it's just like, it's unimportant to me at all. It's not what I have to offer the world. I certainly don't have any shame over it, but I don't have pride in it. This whole Black Pride movement.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps and I see that you are 배불러 So
All right, welcome back. Let's roll out to Los Angeles, bring in the Korean Cosell to talk about my fire starter, about Bud Light and Dana White in UFC. Steve, I don't think Dana White has anything to apologize for here. I think this is a great victory. I think Bud Light folded, not Dana White. Your thoughts?
Well, if you go back to the genesis of the whole Bud Light decline, it began obviously during March Madness with that Dylan gal. Don't want to misgender anybody. And I still remember they had that vice president or that marketing director who really thought she knew it all. And she was almost like wagging the finger at all of middle America and basically the base of the Bud Light audience and their consumers by saying, we need to rebrand this, we need to repackage this. And she used all these fancy buzzwords. In other words, she basically said, if you are the type of person that likes Bud Light, if you've been our customer for the past 35, 40 years, we no longer want you. And that's why we're doing this. We're going to rebrand this. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you want to talk about March Madness. Dylan was on a can and people lost their minds. And look, I don't know if they've really recovered from it. I haven't really kept in contact with my local liquor store owning aunts and uncles, but I'm assuming that they're still having some issues getting the product off the shelves, which is okay. But here's the thing though, Jason, if you watch ESPN's boxing, which is presented by Top Rank, they've actually been a sponsor of Bud Light for about a year and a half. And here's the thing, as long as there's no preachiness going on and you just deliver the product on the television screen, which is boxing, or whatever else, and you say it's sponsored by this, for the most part, I think people have moved on. I don't see a lot of boxing fans on Twitter during fight night saying, you know what, I'm going to boycott this broadcast. I'm going to boycott Top Rank. I'm not watching any of these fights. People just want to be able to enjoy, number one, what they're watching on television, what is being presented. And I'm not so sure they really care all that much about the product that is sponsoring unless that sponsor becomes overly preachy.
That's certainly true. Bud Light has not recovered. Their sales are still struggling, and they've spending $150 million with the UFC, hoping Dana White can help them recover. That's clear as day. And Dana White has never backed off his support of Donald Trump. Dana White is on the record like, nah, I'm not down with the transgender movement. And so they are completely with this move, because I've seen people they need to publicly come out and renounce what they said. They just cut a $150 million check and gave it to a guy who does renounce everything basically the left stands for. I just don't know if I can expect Bud Light to do any more. The Bud Light thing is over for me. I think it's a success story. I'm not a beer drinker, never have been. I know you like to drink beer, but I've never been a beer guy. And so I don't have a problem, though, with people that do drink Bud Light. I think this removes a lot of the stench off of Bud Light. And if people want to be smart and strategic, they need to move on from the Bud Light thing and find out who's next. Who else can we bully into supporting masculinity and someone who's not on board with the leftist agenda? This is a great success story. People should celebrate this success, not still hold a grudge against Bud Light, because I believe Bud Light was really a marketing department and a marketing person out of control. I don't think the entire company or the people at the very top were like, yeah, let's rebrand and reach out to the whole transgender deal. I just think the whole PR marketing group, and I'm talking about across the country, they all think it's their job to make America gay, and that's how the next generation's all going to be gay, and it's all going to be gender fluid, and you need to be there. And Bud Light just learned a lesson of like, nah, that ain't where our customer base is, and we need to stay loyal to our customer base. Well, let's reward Dana White.
If you were going to turn this whole saga into a documentary, the title should be From Dylan to Dana. In fact, what I would do if I'm Bud Light, I'd put Dana White on the can. And some of the UFC fighters, the ones that aren't Chechen, because there might be some religious overtones, but whoever are like the 5 most popular UFC combatants alongside Dana White, I'd start putting them on cans. Other companies have done that. And here's the thing that's really interesting about these fancy vice presidents of marketing and branding. They go to these fancy schools. You know, we end up having to pay for their student loans, and they know everything at age 25, right? And they're just like insufferable. They don't understand one thing, that when you are marketing any brand, whether it's Bud Light or anything else, I think rule number 1 is actually appeal to your base and then build it out. It's almost like they do it the opposite way. They alienate the base and then try to market and cater to people that may never like your company or brand. I've always found that to be mind-boggling.
It's like ESPN trying to chase non-sports fans. We need to get screw the sports fans. Let's chase the non-sports fans and convert them into sports fans while pissing off sports fans. It is a mistake. Steve, I want to move on to another topic that's right up your alley. I've seen you and Coach JB and Smitty talking about it on JB's show. College football controversy involving Jim Harbaugh and sign stealing. Deion Sanders doesn't think it's a big deal. I'm not sure. I think it's a big deal. What say you, Steve Kim?
Well, if it's not a big deal, no one would do it. What's that old saying? If you're not cheating, you ain't trying. And there is actually a debate in coaching circles, and these are the guys that I'll defer to. Some think it makes a really big deal. Others say, nah, not really. But it takes place all the time. But it's like doing your taxes. I don't want to say that any of us cheat on our taxes. I would never say that. Of course, I don't. But you always find loopholes. You always find ways. That's why you hire those guys at those companies, those CPAs, to find ways to lessen your burden, but still do your duty as an American citizen. But you don't want to do it to a point and break so many rules that you get an audit from the IRS. So in other words, there's cheating, but you got to do it the right way. Like, think about it. My buddy Cribby, we were talking about this, and he's a real football guy, really knows the game. And he said, Steve, it's like, if you're going to cheat on your wife, you can't leave the panties in the back seat with a box of condoms. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're going to do it, you got to do it the right way. I mean, can you have a little respect for your wife, please? And so that's the thing. Harbaugh and Michigan probably did everything else that everyone else is doing, but the problem is there are certain rules that are prohibited that they did actually break. Yeah, I went there.
Steve,
I went there.
I know you just, and I got Pastor Anthony. You just did this on a Tennessee Harmony Day. My head is exploding. Let me try to.
And I'm sorry.
Let me try to get you back on. Let me try to get you back on course. Is the NCAA perhaps picking on Jim Harbaugh? Because it seems like they've been feuding back and forth for several years, and maybe that's why they're sticking it to him.
That's an element. Couldn't agree more. Look, I love Captain Khakis. He's an iconoclastic individual. He's a little bit odd, and he bites back. He can be very prickly. He doesn't always capitulate. In fact, he never does. And he's not the type of guy that will just give you the mea culpa. It's just not in him. And I kind of find that endearing, to be honest with you. And the shame of it all is, I wonder if this is going to be the last straw that drives him out of college football. And I think that would be a shame, because I've told you this before, Jason. He brings some character and he brings some entertainment value to the sport that is losing its tradition. And what I love about Harbaugh is this, as someone who is not a Michigan fan, he makes you care about Michigan every single week because you're hoping that he loses. And that, to me, is a sign of ultimate respect, that when he loses like a Nick Saban, you kind of treat it like a mini holiday, right? And Michigan can get a lot of good coaches, but I think there's only one Harbaugh, and he's done an excellent job. I know you don't want to admit it. You still think Brady Hoke was going to build this thing. Newsflash, he wasn't. He didn't. Okay. Maybe he'll get another shot. Newsflash, he won't. And this would be a terrible loss, not only for Michigan, but like I said, for college football.
You're going to get me to say what I truly think and bring me out of my Jim Harbaugh, Brady Hoke shtick. I like Jim Harbaugh. I think he's great for college football. I thought he was getting a little too much credit early before he actually won a Big Ten and got into the playoffs. But this whole deal now with the NCAA picking on him has made me really like Jim Harbaugh, and I'm rooting for him because I do think he's getting picked on here. And I think he's got a great team, and they're putting a cloud over what should be a great story, this great Michigan team that may in this, because I don't know if there's Georgia doesn't look as great. I'm not sure they'll get beat up by one of these SEC teams in the college football playoffs this year. I think Harbaugh has a legitimate national title contender, and now they're putting a shadow over him. It's kind of, you remember, I don't know if you remember the year Cam Newton had at Auburn and he won the Heisman, and there were people in the media picking on Cam Newton and trying to pretend like him and his family were the first people that ever got any kind of illegal recruiting benefits. And that made me a huge Cam Newton rooter and supporter. It was the fact they kept picking on him and the media kept trying to and single him out. And I was like, get out of here with that. And that's how I now feel about Jim Harbaugh. It's like, come on, man, enough's enough. Can we just enjoy this college football season without trying to nitpick this guy at every turn? What did he get suspended 2 or 3 games for at the beginning of the season? That was some nitpick stuff too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was for like unauthorized practice time or something. I don't know. One of these. But yeah.
Didn't he buy a hamburger for somebody?
A hamburger, at Mick Harbaugh's, and he didn't want to admit it, and he was very combative with the NCAA investigator. By the way, the 2010 year Scam Newton was interesting. because it's like, you really think that this guy is the only one that ever received anything under the table? And it seemed to spur him. And the one thing that I loved about Newton, his play got better. I mean, I have never seen a guy carry a team, and I want to be respectful here because they did win a national title. This is a great stat about that Auburn offense outside of Cam Newton. You know, nobody else put up a single NFL stat. Nobody got one reception, one carry, one snap. That literally was a one-man team at the next level. No one else played in the NFL.
I thought they had a running back. That was good.
They had a very good freshman running back by the name of Michael Dyer, whose career just kind of spiraled, had issues, and he transferred, never played in the league. I defy anyone to find another unit that basically had one guy have a stat in the National Football League and nowhere else.
Steve, before I get to the next topic, I want to tell you guys, and tell you, if you like to play daily fantasy sports, Prize Picks has partnered with us, and you should try it out. It's awesome. If you, this football season, want to be a part of a daily fantasy sports play, if you want to turn $10 into $250, it just takes a few taps. Prize Pick is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. My mom plays Prize Picks. She loves football. She thinks she's smarter than me. She's got some picks for Thursday Night Football tomorrow involving Josh Allen. She thinks that Josh Allen's going to throw at least one interception. She's got Josh Allen more than 1.5 interceptions. She thinks Stephon Diggs is going to have more than 87.5 receiving yards. And she thinks Tampa Bay's Mike Evans is going to have more than 62.5 receiving yards. It sounds like she thinks some points are going to get put up and Josh Allen's going to be a little bit sloppy. Makes sense to me. You can play against my mom every week. We put up Mama Whitlock's picks every week. Go to prizepicks.com/fearless. Use our promo code FEARLESS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/fearless. Use the promo code FEARLESS. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Steve, I got a new topic for you, and you sent this to me this afternoon, and I'm glad you did. I think it's amazing. I want to marinate on this topic a little bit here. The Miami Dolphins had a civil war going on when Brian Flores was their head coach, and it appears that civil war was between he and the general manager, Chris Grier. If you remember when Brian Flores got fired, he sued the ownership group. Is it Jeffrey Ross? Why can't I think of the name of the owner for the Dolphins? Excuse me?
Stephen Ross is the owner.
Stephen Ross. Yeah, Stephen Ross. Michigan grad, big fan of Jim Harbaugh's. Yeah, Stephen Ross was a racist for firing Brian Flores. And I said at the time, I wish we could go back. I said at the time, hey man, there's a feud between the head football coach, who's black, and the general manager, who's black. They're feuding over the quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, who is Samoan, a person of color. 3 people of color were having an argument about Tua Tagovailoa, and they fired Brian Flores, and the ownership, Stephen Ross, supported his black general manager. Brian Flores played the race card. I got fired because I'm black. All the social justice warriors in the media, of course the Dolphins are racist, and I can't wait for Brian Flores to sue them, and the NFL has such a problem. Well, now Cal Vanoy, who was a linebacker, just said on a podcast, well, we can watch for ourselves, just said on a podcast that while he was there, he was in the middle of this feud between Chris Grier and Brian Flores. Play the clip.
I believe I was just in the middle of a civil war, they call it, between like the GM and the head coach. And that like going on, the power struggles that you don't see behind closed doors. Yeah. And it was kind of him like, oh, this was your guy? Well, you know, see ya. Another thing down there that happened was some players were talking to the media about Tua and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people thought it was me.
Yeah,
and then
I heard
people don't know this, but me and Tua are close. Like, I know Tua, and like for me to like go to like one of the beat writers seems like that's crazy to me. And a lot of like people down there thought I was like feeding these beat writers information, which is like, what? I know some players, that's what they do. Like, I think it's crazy to do that in general, but that's not something I would do. So that was that pissed me off that like some people started that rumor. And then after I got cut, they asked me about like Brian Flores, and then literally like 2 hours after that, I got someone sent me a news article that came out saying like I was a bad captain, I was a bad teammate, you know, X, Y, and Z, and that was just them trying to like cover themselves of why they cut me, I guess. I don't know.
So I believe in 2021, Michael Lombardi or someone reported that Brian Flores at one point told Tua that he felt the Dolphins should have drafted Mac Jones and not him. Anyway, to me, Calvinoy has just blown up the entire racism narrative around Brian Flores. Do you agree?
Yes, this is vindication for Chris Greer, Stephen Ross, and the Miami Dolphin organization. And to anyone that disagrees, I would ask him this. If you are a Dolphin fan, who would you rather have right now? Brian Flores as your coach, or Tua under the guidance of Mike McDaniel, who has blossomed and runs that offense very, very well? Who would you rather have? Look, you could say about any shortcomings Tua has, but he runs that offense well. Seems to get along with people really, really exceptionally well. A stable leader, and he's extremely productive. And there comes a point, but again, if Brian Flores was that highly thought of in NFL circles, right, why has his name never been brought up again as a future head coaching candidate? That's the question that we have to ask at this point.
I'm going to tell you why, and I'll be the only one, and we got to cut out this entire segment and run it as a separate. Make sure we do that, because this is important, because people hate to talk about it, but it's just factual. Brian Flores got fired because of his sense of entitlement. Period. End of story. This had, and anybody with any knowledge of the NFL and how it actually operates could see what was going on a mile away. And if I don't know Brian Flores, I don't know Chris Greer, I don't know Stephen Ross. I was sitting whenever this went down, I can't remember where I was at the time, because I can't even, someone had to remind me of the year this all went down, but I said and talked about on air, wherever I was at, either here at Fox Sports or maybe at Outkick, I can't remember, but I was like, hey man, this is about the quarterback. And the black GM and the black head coach having a disagreement about their Samoan quarterback. This is what goes on in football leagues and on teams. And the ownership came in and said, you know what? I believe in this quarterback and I believe in this general manager, and I can't have a head coach who thinks we should have drafted Mac Jones when we've drafted Tua Tagovailoa. This is just a business decision. But Brian Flores feels entitled, and there is a sense of entitlement that we encourage among black people and encourage among black coaches that gets them cooked, that gets them fired. Brian Flores, remember, Brian Flores snitched on the owner about trying to get Tom Brady. And I said at the time, I was like, if you're an owner and you're paying some guy millions of dollars, he better not snitch on me because I'm trying to get him Tom Brady. That better not happen. That's a disloyal, entitled person that needed to be fired. And he needs to withdraw his lawsuit and apologize and tell everybody he grew, he made a mistake, he misunderstood. And then I think potentially he could potentially be a head coaching candidate again. But we got to quit gassing these guys up and telling every coach, you've been robbed, you've been done wrong, you've been this or that. It's hurt Eric Bieniemy. That's why teams have been afraid to hire Eric Bieniemy, because it's like, you're hiring. What if you figure out you need to fire him? And then you're going to have the whole media calling you a racist. And there was just never any proof. I know people. A very good friend of mine, very good, Daryl Carter, sorry for calling your name out, but he's a super successful real estate guy, played basketball at Michigan, black dude, and it's worth a lot of money. Stephen Ross put him in the game. Stephen Ross and him did business deals early in Daryl's career that led Daryl to being one of the more wealthy people that I know. And we were calling Stephen Ross a racist, all off of some BS narrative, all off of speculation and Twitter. We have to stop this. It's killing black men, and it's making people like leery. No good deed goes unpunished. I'm living it out. You know, I talked about the Stephen A. Smith thing with you earlier this week about like no good deed goes unpunished, Uncle Jimmy. And I'm just, I get it. The entitlement that we encourage is killing us, particularly as men. So, and if you have a further thought, I'm so glad you sent me this story because it's important. Well, but I'll give you a final thought, and then
him suing Ross and then turning stool pigeon, he might be more toxic than 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl. So maybe he'll never be a head coaching candidate ever again. The other thing is, this continues a trend. I'm reading a book from Seth Wickersham. It's called Better to Be Feared. It's about the Belichick-Brady crap dynasty of the past 20 years. It's a really good book. I'm almost through with it. And Jason, I will say this. Stay away from that Belichick tree. That Belichick coaching tree, when you make them the CEO, there has been a continued pattern of failure. It turns out that the Belichick system is really, in large part, and I respect Bill, it's called Tom Brady. So if you want to hire a coach from that Belichick tree, bring a Tom Brady and you might have a shot. If you don't, the old Kimster warned you about the track record.
The last topic, because I thought you could have some fun with this, one of your favorite personalities, one of your favorite athletes, from the U, the whole deal. Michael Irvin called out his son. Let's play the video. His son is a wannabe rapper. Let's play the video of Michael Irvin.
I got a son. He raps. His rap name is Tut Tarantino. If you ever listen to some of his raps, I'm like, oh my God, where does this come from, son? You grew up in a gated community your whole life, but he's rapping my life because we romanticize and fantasize about that old thug life, ghetto life, and all of that stuff.
Your thoughts on Michael Irvin calling his son out for being a studio gangster?
Well, the playmaker turned the showmaker is now the truth sayer. And he's right. And I believe he's talking about Michael Irvin Jr., who went to St. Thomas Aquinas, which is kind of this posh, let's put it this way. It's not exactly Miami Northwestern High or Killian High or Edison or Carroll City. Let's just put it that way. Was actually a tight end, pretty decent player at the University of Miami, was recruited during the Mark Richt era, then he transferred out his last year or two. And I think Michael's looking at this going, you are shaming what I've done for you. All the sacrifices, everything that I've done for this family is for you never to say these lyrics and have these type of words come out of your mouth. Now, if you're going to rap like Will Smith, I get it. But you're not Tupac, or, well, you know, Tupac, there's theories on him. But the thing that's interesting about this, somewhere out there up in the big clouds in the sky, C. Dolores Tucker must be cackling her head off. This is what she warned us about the cultural decay of where hip-hop was headed, about not only the explicit words, the sexual nature of the songs, but what it can do to not just Black culture, but to American culture in terms of getting into our mindset and then affecting our behaviors and our societal norms. Think about it. This kid grew up well. He probably, I would say, was among the 2% in how he grew up. This is what C. Dolores Tucker used to be lampooned at, but I think all of us that made fun of her back then, and maybe I was one of them, we got to say to Miss Tucker, we owe you an apology. But it got me to be thinking. I remember during that time when I think it was, who was it? It was the vice president's wife, Tipper Gore. And she was a big opponent of what was going on with lyrics, the explicit nature of rap music. And I remember in the late 80s, they used to have the parental advisory stickers. Remember that, Jason, for certain albums? I always thought this. Here's what you should do for anyone that's going to rap and do what Michael Irvin Jr. is doing. I not only want a parental advisor sticker on that CD or whatever, if you still remember those things, I think every guy that does gangster rap actually should have like a sticker like this big of their rap sheet. So this way, let's say you walk into like a record store. All right, this guy here, you're like, oh, couple homicides, couple armed robberies. You know what? This guy's authentic. I like him. And he's on parole. 8 baby mama. You know what? This guy's going to keep it real. Yes. Then that's what we should do then. So now you could say, you know what? That guy, as the kids say, he keeps it 100 with the red letters and font. You know, that's what they should do.
Here's what I've always thought is literally, I would put a tax, because I'm not against free speech, but I would just put some kind of tax. Oh, you want to do explicit lyrics? Here's a tax that we're going to add to your CD sale. It's going to cost an extra $10 for everybody to buy, to stream your music, to whatever, and we'll take that money and we'll, spend it on schools or whatever. But yeah, I would tax. For the lyrical pornography, all pornography should be taxed at an additional rate for the toll it takes on. You want to log on to Pornhub, tax people's internet deal. That's a way to slow some of that down. But thank you, Steve. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it also points to the music industry of what they want. Look, the days of having the poor righteous teachers or even a KRS-One, anything that's conscious, educational, or nonviolent are over. It is not allowed. This is also an indictment on the music industry and maybe the whole entertainment industry as a whole of not only what they are disseminating to the public, but what they are demanding from the performers.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. We got to keep it moving. Brett Favre next.
Warren Sapp and Keyshawn, previously on Fearless.
What was the issue with you and Keyshawn? Why didn't y'all click?
He followed me around the Pro Bowl the whole 1999 year when, lobbied me, put his wife with my wife, kids with my kids. Hey, man, I'm telling you, dog, you just lost the championship 11-6. I'll get you that touchdown. I guarantee you. Me and you come together, we going to get a Super Bowl, whatever. So I'm like, all right. So I go in because when you lose the NFC championship game back in the day, your coaching staff is now the coaching staff for the Pro Bowl. And Tony Dungy and us had a situation where we were, about to fire Mike Shula because the Glazers weren't happy with the performance in the championship game. And then Tony said, if you fire him, you got to fire us all. So we almost lost our whole coaching staff. But that came back together, and then I lobbied for Keyshawn on the team. I'm like, yo, let's go get him. But he's going to make more money than you. What? That is never an issue in my locker room. Wives, kids, and money is off limits. So he came on the team. They got him a nice contract. we in the off season run around, me, Brooks, and Lynch, and Rondé, the whole crew out there doing what we do in the off season, and there's no Keyshawn. I said, you said you was gonna leave my offense, dog. Where you at, baby? Oh, I got some things in LA I need to take care of, you know. I'm like, no. You told me you was gonna leave my offense, so now I need you here. And now when he gets here, we break the huddle. He don't know the play. He don't know where to line up. He don't know if he on or off the ball. Oh, man, trust me, dog. And then he didn't like Sean King. I'm like, well, Keyshawn, you're not getting another quarterback. This is what you signed up for. We have Sean King, my man. You got to get along with King. Nah. And you know you don't bother my quarterback.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, it was ugly.
All right, welcome back. Time for some fun slinging with Brett Favre, the NFL legend. Let's roll out to Mississippi and bring in Brett, who I've already seen. Like, man, Brett dressed up today. He's got a shirt with sleeves on
sleeves,
today.
yeah.
Boy,
Only the best for you,
headed
Jason.
to church, Brett, or what?
No, it was I just got off my bike. If you were wondering why my hair is so stylish. So I threw on the first shirt. I was not going to wear my biking attire on this show.
Got you. All right, well, you got to put the work in the gym. How else do we stay looking good at our age? Brett, I want to start off talking about Kirk Cousins, who won a big game on Monday Night Football, knocked off the San Francisco 49ers. Everybody's raving about how well he played. Kirk has a reputation of not playing big in the biggest games, in the solo Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football game. Whenever the spotlight is brightest, people say Kirk Cousins kind of melts. Do you buy that, or was that just more probably a coincidence? Is there a special pressure that happens when you're on the Sunday night or Monday Night Football game?
You know, I think there's a certain mystique, if you will, about playing on Monday night or Sunday night or Thursday night. Really, when you're the only show in town or showing on TV, there's something special about that. And I always looked at it as a bonus and an honor, because they don't usually put the bad teams on prime time. So it means that you've done something, and this is your chance to shine. Not that any other game on any other network was not your time to shine. I think you should want to be the best at all times. But there's a certain level of pressure, if you want to call it pressure, to perform in front of everyone, not a divided crowd, everyone. Millions across the country, whether they're fans or not. This is your chance to be seen. So, yeah, I think that there is a certain level of that. Some guys tend to handle it better than others. But I think you have to – quarterbacks, we always talk about this. They get way too much glory and way too much blame. And I think that that's absolutely true. So I think in Kirk's case, I think really in any quarterback's, there's a lot of factors that go into your success or lack thereof. Your decision-making is solely based upon you. That the burden falls on you to make the right decisions in the accurate throws. But you can't control blocking, catching, route running, play calling. Those are factors you can't control. And as hard as it was for me to block out the things I couldn't control, I found that sometimes I would lose that battle, and I would be more concerned about whether protection's not holding up or the route running is suspect. And that would cause my game to decline, but that would fall upon me. So I think it's a little unfair to put that much on Kirk or any quarterback unless you look at the factors. And I didn't study the game. I haven't broken down the film to say, but I think he's a very good quarterback and has done well for them for many years.
I heard an interesting theory listening to talk radio earlier this week about what may have been motivating Kirk Cousins, and it kind of plays a little bit into the conversation you and I had last week about players move around now from team to team more than they ever did in your era. And someone pointed out something that I wasn't thinking about is like Kirk Cousins is a Shanahan quarterback. Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan, when they were in Washington, they're the ones who thought Kirk Cousins could play. They drafted him despite already having drafted RG3. And so someone posited the opinion that Kirk Cousins wanted to look really good in front of Kyle Shanahan just in case things don't work out with Brock Purdy. I found that to be an interesting theory and maybe some truth to it.
Well, I think there could be a lot of truth to it. Although I think he would, knowing Kirk, what little bit I know about him, or any quarterback for that matter, shouldn't you want to be your best regardless of who the opposing team or the opposing coach? I mean, you get paid a lot of money. I got paid a lot of money, tons more than Roger Staubach and Archie Manning and Terry Bradshaw and all those guys, Doug Williams, Warren Moon. You know, $16 million contract is almost laughable now. But you should want to perform regardless of what your paycheck is or who you're playing or your mentors on the other side or someone that you looked up to, your idol, you're playing against your idol. You should want to play to your best no matter what. And I think that's a very interesting theory. I think Brock Purdy has done an unbelievable job. Is he the future for them? Time will tell. But he has done it exceptionally well for them now. But I think that the one factor that everyone is concerned about with Brock Purdy would be injuries, that he's more susceptible to injuries. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen.
This has a little to do with college football, this next question, but same issue reared its head in professional football during your playing career. Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are taking a lot of heat about sign stealing. And during your playing days, there was, of course, the Spygate controversy, I believe in 2007, involving the New England Patriots. Reporters asked Deion Sanders about sign stealing, and I found his response interesting. I want to get your reaction. Let's play Deion Sanders talking about sign stealing.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, everyone's trying to get an edge. I mean, everyone's trying to get whatever edge they can. You could have someone's whole game plan. They could mail it to you. You still got to stop it. You still got to stop it. So in football, it's not as pronounced as baseball. If I know a curveball is coming, I got you. You know, with football, I don't give a darn if you know a sweep is coming. You still got to stop it. Physically, it's a physical game. You got to stop it. So that's a little tough. I don't buy into a lot of that stuff that someone's stealing this, stealing that. I don't buy into a lot of that stuff. You still got to play the game. Back in our glory days with San Francisco as well as the Cowboys, you know darn well Emmitt Smith is getting the ball. You know darn well Mike Irvin is running the comeback. You know darn well Jay Novacek is going to do what he's going to do, and you couldn't stop it.
Your thoughts, do you remember the Spygate deal and whether you thought it was a big deal?
I remember it very well. I totally 100% agree with Deion. I think back when I was playing, probably half of my career, we didn't have the headset deal in the helmet. So you had to signal. Of course, defensive coordinators had to signal as well. Even later, once we got the headset, the defense didn't get it for several years after. And we would steal signals all the time. But if you knew, well, some defensive coordinators would get out there and just blatantly be on the field signaling. Well, if you're going to do that, and we can potentially steal a signal and get, again, back with Deion, if you know what's coming, you still got to check to the right play or execute the play that you change it to, if you do change it. But knowing a blitz is coming certainly helps, but you still got to execute. And if the right play is called to what they're doing, so be it. But, you know, if a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator is going to get out on the field and blatantly show you his signals, you know, I don't call that cheating. Now, I think Spygate, correct me if I'm wrong, they videoed a walkthrough.
Yeah, they were using
practice.
video. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do have a problem with that, but I also have a problem with showing your signals. If it's a walkthrough, if it's a day, I think it was a day before the game or 2 days before the game. Am I right? The game plan
so,
should.
Yes.
The game plan should be in. Run them in. If we had to play San Francisco in the playoffs, which we did at San Francisco, we went 2 days ahead of time. We did a walkthrough 2 days prior. If we did it at the 49ers facility, which was not uncommon to walk through it, another team's facility, you gotta believe that somebody's going to be trying to steal something, whether you're signaling or you leave a play call sheet harmlessly, you left it, and that gets into the wrong hands. You got to believe that's part of it. I mean, if you're going to give an opportunity to steal signals, by all means, the other team's going to try to get any edge that they can possibly get. I don't really have a problem with it.
You said that when you played as an offense, there were times when you were able to steal the defense's signals, and did you feel like that gave you an advantage, or maybe it gave me a tiny advantage, but not really?
I think it gave an advantage at times. I can't say that we won a game because of it, but I think we may have won some plays, which may be, I'd have to go back and really think of some of the games where it happened. But I remember, I loved him. Foge Fazio was the defense coordinator for the Vikings. He was an old school guy. So if you tried to get out, he'd get 5 yards on the field. And I would be in the huddle waiting for a play, and I would look over. And I still, to this day, remember when he put both hands on his shoulders, it was cover 2. And if it was an all-out blitz, he did, the old push the plunger down for a bomb blitz, which was everybody coming. So if I saw that, I mean, he was a cover 2 guy. 90% of his signals were cover 2, cover 2, cover 2. Well, I mean, it didn't take a rocket scientist to read that when you walked to the line to see if it was cover 2. But knowing it was bomb blitz certainly gave you an advantage as to what's coming, and all bets are off. I mean, now they're bringing everybody. So making a check or making a throw, knowing that the bomb blitz is coming certainly is an advantage.
Brett, I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned last week that Archie Manning was your favorite player growing up. His grandson, Arch Manning, is potentially going to start this week for Texas. He's a freshman. He's a big-time recruit. He's, supposed to be the next big thing. And it made me think about your first time stepping on the field as a college player. I don't think you started, but you got thrown into the Tulane game very early. Do you have any memories of your first appearance, Division I football, how nervous you were? I think you led them to a comeback. I think it worked out well for you. But do you have any memories of that game and what that feeling was like?
I remember it as if it were yesterday. I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast today, Jason, but I can tell you vividly. I was absolutely nervous. The previous week, as a true freshman, we went to Alabama. They were fresh off of a national championship. On both ends, they had Broderick Thomas and Derek Thomas. And I think that they won the national championship that year, my freshman year, 87, I think. If not, they should have. And I was a third-string quarterback, and believe me, I wanted to play. But as that game got underway and progressed into the second half, I was saying, maybe next week it would be a better time to start. Those guys were bringing it, man. They were bringing it. And we played them at Legion Field. I mean, it was 85,000 screaming Alabama fans. And I said, not that I thought I was going to play, but I was like, if I get in, I hope it's next week. But anyway, I did get in the next week against Tulane. We were down. It's funny, the Tulane game and the Cincinnati game are almost carbon copies of how I entered the game, where we were in relation to winning or losing were very similar, and was able to bring both teams back to a win. But the funny story about my start at my first game at Southern Miss, I was the backup punter. Now I'm 17 years old. So at halftime, we're looking awful. We're down 17-3, something like that. And Coach Jim Carmody was our head coach. He comes over to me, and he was a very stern man, probably in his 60s. And he comes over to me, and he's got this stern look, and he says, "You're going in the second half." So I thought he was talking about punting. Hell, I'm the third quarterback. I mean, I'm thinking, why me? But I'm the backup punter. Maybe I'm punting. So I start stretching my right leg. Lo and behold, I go in as the quarterback. Didn't have to punt, thank God. And was nervous, didn't know the plays. I had probably, I could count on one hand the reps I had with the first or second offense in practice. So much like Cincinnati, I went in kind of blind and played that way, but somehow found a way to make it count at the end.
Wow. Wasn't expecting that story. So you thought you were going in and punt. You actually go in and save the team at quarterback. So, Brett, this last one has nothing to do with football. I want to tap into you as a father. You got a couple of daughters. Somebody has put out over social media a long list of what they consider bad first dates they would never go on. This is from a woman's perspective, places she says she would never, or a group of women said they would never want to be taken to on a first date. Cheesecake Factory, Applebee's, Chili's, Chipotle, all my favorite restaurants. Olive Garden, the movies, your house, any fast food chain. The list goes on. Church is on the list. And so I'm just wondering, as a father, what advice would you give your daughters about a first date? Should they have a list of places where, they wouldn't want to go? And do you remember where you took your wife on her first date? Is there any story there?
Well, I look at this list and I go, where can you take them? My goodness. Both my daughters, I've given advice over the years, much like my parents gave advice, much like any parents give advice. Some they listen to, some they don't. But I think one of the things that I would say and have said was just enjoy yourself, you know. Try not to put too much pressure on them. Girls are sensitive. So, you know, and I trust both of them. The oldest is now 34 and has 3 boys. And the oldest is 13, 9, and 6. Great kids. She's a great parent. The youngest is 24 and has had 1 date. But they're totally opposite. The youngest daughter would love to date, but she never goes anywhere. She's a homebody and doesn't go out to bars, which is good. I'm proud of her for that. But I'm like, you got to go somewhere to meet someone. You got to engage with people. And she's like, oh. So she'll find the right person. And I just, you know, want them to find and the oldest daughter's got a great husband, Alex. He's from Manchester, England. He's a great father, great husband. He's always got a smile on his face. I couldn't be happier with her choice. So I just encourage him to have fun. And the youngest daughter's like, I'm never going to meet nobody. I'm like, not unless you go out somewhere. You got to do something. But I said, you'll find that person. And you know this, Jason. Most adults know this. Kids today want to grow up so quickly. You can't wait to get out of high school. They can't wait to get married. They can't wait to get out of college and get a job. And then when they do, what do they say? Well, I wish I could go back. So enjoy the moment. That's what I try to tell them. Don't be in a rush to grow up, because growing up has its own set of issues and problems in itself. Now,
I agree with every bit of that.
Now, in regards to Deanna and I, we started dating very young. We knew each other growing up. She was a year ahead of me in school, small community. So we're both Catholic, and we would, summer, there was what was called a catechism, which is Bible study. And we would ride the bus to catechism together. She was an exceptional athlete. So on the playground, I mean, she was better than most of the boys in baseball and in football. But our first date, I believe, was Pizza Hut and a movie. That we didn't have many options. And we lived in the country, so it was one of those things that we said, let's go to town. You know, in the big town of Bay St. Louis was the closest thing to us. And they had a movie theater and a Pizza Hut and a Popeyes, which we loved both. But I think and she flipped the bill. She paid for, she had a car. I didn't have a car. I never had a car in high school. So she would pick me up. She would usually pay. And the rest is history.
It is history, because the one thing, the way your dad used you at quarterback, it's not like she had stars in her eyes like, man, this is going to be a big NFL star. She must have really liked you, and particularly if she paid for the date. And so maybe we should have had her on to ask these questions. But the fact that I had no idea that she was a great athlete. Did she go on to play athletics in college as well?
She played basketball in college. She played basketball and softball in high school, and played basketball for 2 years, JUCO, and then finished her college career at Southern Miss. She didn't play at Southern Miss.
Wow.
She was good.
I didn't know. Yeah, wow. You guys, man, if you guys had a son, we could have had, maybe your son.
We may be talking about him starting this week.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know. Anyway, thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
You're
have
welcome,
a good
Jason.
weekend, good week, hunting, fishing, doing whatever you do. Good to see you in a full shirt. That's Brett Favre. Let me tell you guys about Blaze TV plus Blaze News, our new launch of our new website. We've been talking to you guys about big tech censorship and telling you about a major step Blaze Media is taking to declare independence from big tech and ensure we can keep bringing you the truth no matter what. Well, if you go to Blaze Media's website, theblaze.com right now, you will see it's been totally overhauled. You'll see news articles, opinion analysis, lifestyle, and tech commentary. But what you will not see are those obnoxious advertisements that are on virtually every other website. Here's why this is such a big deal. Most people don't realize that by having those ads on our website, Google was able to send bots to scour any content they deemed unsafe for advertisers. After finding something they didn't like, they demand we remove ads from that article or else have our entire website demonetized. Now you don't have to put up with that, and we need you guys to jump on board in support. This is a bit of a financial hit for the Blaze. We need you guys to subscribe to the Blaze and to Blaze News. We're betting on you, that you want the truth and that you're willing to financially support the truth. The cost is like a cup of coffee a month. It's not overly burdensome. We need you guys to help. If you want me, if you want to read all the columns that I write and you want me to continue to write those columns, need you to support us and help us out here. Get your Blaze TV subscription, get your Blaze News subscription, support the Blaze, become a subscriber. All right, stick around. Tennessee Harmony, Anthony and Shemeka Michelle, next.
Abortion worse than slavery. Previously on Fearless.
I hope one day I make it to heaven and I'm able to ask God, and maybe there is no degree, maybe neither is worse than the other, but from my perspective, abortion is worse than slavery. And I say that because we have this mentality.
Well, that's an easy one.
The founding fathers were the worst people in the world, and oh my God, they had slavery. And I'm like, well, hold on, man. We got abortion basically on demand. And we got people out in the streets having convulsions. I can't kill my baby whenever I want to. And I'm like, man, I can't wait for God to make a ruling on this. They're like, no, I think this abortion thing's worse than slavery. Am I wrong for thinking that?
You know, my ancestors were slaves, but I'm here. If my mother had an abortion, I wouldn't be. So, yeah, you get no argument from me on that one.
All right, welcome back. Time for some Tennessee Harmony. Bad news to report. Virgil is in London and won't be here with us. Good news to report. Shemeka Michelle is going to fill in for Virgil from North Carolina. Anthony's here. Anthony, if you could start us off with a prayer.
Father God, we're thankful for today and thankful for your blessings. Father, help us to continue to reflect your goodness in our lives, in our conversation, and in our daily walk. We're thankful in Jesus' name. Amen.
Guys and girls, I saw an interesting topic, I thought, over social media. Have a little bit of a lighter, but I think it's a very serious topic, actually. They put out a meme or put out something over social media about non-starters for dates for women. Women put out a list of places they don't want to go on a first date. It included some, Cheesecake Factory and some of these higher end fast food or higher end chain restaurants, not fast food, but Cheesecake Factory, Chili's, bunch of stuff on Applebee's, all the places I loved, all the places that
fast food's on there.
Fast Red Lobster. Yeah. And then I got down to the point where they said, church. And I was like, wow. And some of the other things, don't go to movies, don't go to bowling, blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, what are the options? But the number one thing I thought when I read this is like, this generation of young people, dating isn't about marriage.
No.
It's about sex. And it's about social media. It's about, are we going someplace where I can take pictures and post on social media? And if it's not that, I'm not interested. And so that's, reading the list, it disappointed me for that reason. And Anthony, you've heard me talk almost from the very first time we met. I was like, I think one of the solutions is if people had first dates at church,
I remember.
It would lead to more healthy relationships. Yeah. Anyway, your impressions, what were your takeaways looking at this list?
You make a very good read on that dating now is not about marriage, it's not about future life planning. And I saw this shift just in my lifetime where the date in and of itself becomes this social media thing, like you said. It's about entertaining. It's about what can you do, and it almost makes the guy out to be the jester in the queen's court. You know how they were bringing the jester to entertain me, see what you can do, and he's coming to do whatever he can. And so now guys are spending exorbitant amount of money for this date for the woman to say, oh, I wasn't really impressed, or the next guy, try again. Whereas how I was raised and how I was brought up, that dating was for marriage, that really the atmosphere that you were in, that was the background. Like wherever you went, it was the encouragement to those who weren't wealthy, who didn't have a lot. Hey, if it's McDonald's, if that's all you got. But the date was really about the conversation. I remember when I started dating, one of the things that I did was, most people say go to dinner and a movie. I reversed that. I would try to schedule an early movie and then dinner so that we can talk about what we, saw in the movie. Yeah, I like that because, again, the date was about the conversation, about, our compatibility, where we're going in life. So as it relates to church, even the same thing, that would have been prime for me because it's like, that lets me know your real value. My wife and I, we met at my church. And again, that let me know a whole lot about who you are, much more than I probably could have found out just on the initial location. But this list, it shows us where we are in the world as it relates to dating. Very good read.
Shemeka, what was your take?
I've been thinking, Jason, we have a lot of bougie CNAs and call center workers. These women nowadays, they are just focused on materialism because a lot of these things on the list I thought were good ideas. Ice cream dates, Starbucks. Like Pastor Anthony said, it gives you the opportunity to be able to talk to someone. My daughter just went on a date a few weeks ago, and my suggestion was going to the ice cream parlor. That way you can actually sit there. You're not worried about how you're eating, what it looks like. He's not trying to go broke, and it gives you the opportunity to talk. What I'm finding, Jason, is you're right. These dates now are focused on sex and what it looks like for Instagram, because if you're really trying to get to know someone, a walk in the park, a walk downtown, those should be good options for dates. And I'm not sure what women are actually looking for, but a lot of them are very delusional and living in a fantasy world because most people, especially in today's economy, don't have the type of money that they are looking for. That's why I always say they are looking to celebrities, trying to pattern their lives after celebrities. If you don't have any money in the bank, why can't you go bowling? Why can't you go to the Cheesecake Factory? That young lady that had that viral video, she had on a dress from an online retail shop And the dresses are cheap. Like, I just don't understand. You can buy something offline, but you draw the line at the Cheesecake Factory. You know, we just have our priorities mixed up, and it's no wonder that you're seeing so many kids born out of wedlock, so many people that don't believe in marriage, because the priorities are wrong. And I don't blame men for saying, never mind.
I saw a different video along the same lines. I don't know if either one of you guys saw it, but a woman was getting interviewed and she was asked, what's the minimum amount of dollars someone should spend on a date? And she said it was $200.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I hear that as a 56-year-old grown man with, you know, plenty of income, but I think of myself when I was 23, 24, $200 on a date. And again, that's where I'm like, that sounds like a bribe. That sounds like, at my young age, that sounds like, yeah, leave that on the dresser when we're done. That's what it, and that's why I was just like, this is, and again, when a young guy, someone in your age set, spends $200 on a date, his expectations are going to elevate.
Yeah.
And so you're just setting yourself up for failure and misunderstanding.
Shemeka makes a very good point. When you grow up in a culture where you're emulating celebrities and you're emulating rap culture, hip hop culture is all about what we have on. Like, I need to know how much you make, and evidence of that is what you have on and what you're able to spend. The whole making it rain dynamic, which again plays into wasting money, all materialism, etc. So, you know, again, like you said, my first date with my wife, we went to Starbucks. I had a hot chocolate, she had tea, but we talked for 4 hours. Like, that is, and we learned so much about one another, and that's really been a staple, not just of our dating life, but in our marriage, that no matter what we go through, we've been able to talk. But to expect a young man, now I was raised chivalrous, okay? Yeah. I was raised that, okay, we're gonna take care of it. I got you, I'm gonna pick you up, I got everything. But to have this expectation of $200 at the time when I was dating, maybe inflation is playing in, but that was, you know, almost 2 of my checks early on dating. So I'm like, this is just for a date. That's the dating game, really. That's game, and that's not a game that I'm interested in playing, and none of these young guys should be interested. We're not trying to emulate the celebrities or the hip hop artists, which even then, they are living out or displaying a fantasy. The cars and the videos are not theirs. You know, it's rented stuff. It's all production. And so trying to emulate that, it's ridiculous. Biblically, now you talked about going back. Biblically, I try to look at this from a biblical space. We don't find first date culture because at that time, most of the marriages were arranged. But you do find some instances where there are interactions, but those interactions were, you know, Boaz and Ruth, they're in a field where, you know, they're working. You've got somebody that may find someone at a festival or in harvest or things like that. But most of the time, it was from a familial dynamic. This family knows that family, and hey, she's good for you, etc. But this stuff that they're dealing with, man, $200, Jason, that's ridiculous.
Shemeka, what did you think? Your daughters are young. What do you think of this $200 stipulation?
I think it's foolishness. I mean, look at these kids today. If you have $200 to toss like that, I'm going to think you're doing something illegal. Or just simply because if you're in school and you're working hard to stay in school, most of the time college kids don't have money like that to toss around. So if you feel like you can just take every girl you meet on a $200 date, I'm going to be suspicious of you. Their dad is going to be suspicious. So, you know, I think the fare is nice. You know, there's so many things that these young kids can do. I think back to right before I went in college. the summer before, I was in a medical program with Bowman Gray, and we used to, you know, sit around and talk and laugh. And I remember one of the guys saying, you know, Nikki is the type of girl you have to take to a nice restaurant in a Cadillac. Shemeka, you're the type of girl that you take to McDonald's in a Pinto. And I was so offended. I was like, what? And he was like, no, but you're just down to earth and you're real easy to get along with. And that's one of the things I prefer. I prefer someone feeling comfortable with me, someone who's able to talk and laugh. And that's the same thing I want for my children. Get to know someone, get to know his values. How was he raised? Will he make a good husband? You know, if he's sitting around and the only thing he can comment every time you say something is that's what's up, he may not be the right person. That's a pet peeve of mine, someone that can't carry on a conversation. So if you put yourself in positions where you can actually have that conversation, will he make you walk on the inside of the street? Will he actually, you know, care about you getting home safely? These are the things that you need to be looking for, not whether or not he will spend $200 on a date. I think that's ridiculous. And who's raising these people? What are you doing? You're not a prostitute. It's not about how much money he spends. It's about actually getting to know that person and what values he holds, which is why I didn't understand the whole don't go to church. Why not? You know, I went on a date prior to being married to church. And I just ran into his mom a few months ago in Sam's Club. And this woman still, you know, respects me for who I am. Had a great conversation. She wanted to know what was going on in my life, how my kids were. You know, women are really selling themselves short when they feel like all they have to offer is sex. You know, why is it okay for him to take you somewhere, spend $200-300, and now you're tossing your body to him? That makes you a prostitute, and it really says that you don't value yourself the way that you think you do. I think that they have a false sense of self-worth, so they think, okay, you're really setting a standard, and you're showing me that I'm worth $200 or $300. But is your body really that cheap that he has to present nothing else to you but money? That's really what you're putting out there.
You're putting yourself out there to be preyed upon, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because literally what you're going to run into for a young woman to date a man that can spend $200 or $300 on a date, particularly a first date, that's going to be some older, established man who may be married or just maybe too old, and you don't need to be involved because he's going to have a mental edge on you.
Yeah.
Or, again, as someone's already said, it's going to be someone in the street life who's just throwing cash away. And so you're putting yourself in position to be preyed upon because then his expectations, and, you know, expectations are the key to happiness. Once his expectations are elevated, his behavior could get out of hand if his expectations aren't met. You're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to date myself, but it's like, I can remember Putt-Putt was a great first date.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they still have Putt-Putt?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's... And then I'm glad Shemeka brought up the church thing and I'm glad you brought up the Bible.
Yeah.
Because in anything, I've said this before, you know, The Godfather is one of my favorite movies. And if Michael, Al Pacino's character, with his first wife that got killed, you see the first date process where everything's done with the family.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep saying about, like, man, first date in the church where you actually meet the family, you meet the minister, you meet deacons, you meet the deaconess. And now you know that guy has some adult eyes on him that will be, you know, to me, it's like the ideal first date.
Of the things Shemeka said, two of the things that really came up. One, you know, when he spends that kind of money, men, you know, it's just one of our nature, we're attached to our money. So if he spends that kind of money, he's got some expectations for something.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is one thing. But number two is imagine how the date will go if we reframe the date as this is a process that leads to marriage. This is a process that we're trying to plan to see, okay, is this somebody that I'd like to know, to be my future spouse? And if we scratch off some things, all right, look, we ain't doing no drugs, we're not having sex, that's off the table. Now we can have a wholesome, nice date. And again, any of those places, because conversation is going to be had. Shemeka brings up, ice cream parlor. I've got a friend of mine who owns an ice cream parlor here in Nashville. And that's what a lot of these young couples are able to do. Just go in, have some good time, talk, have some fun, have some good fun conversation. That keeps it all above board. So when we go to church, because my interests are pure, because my intent is pure, why not go to church? Why not me? But if I'm trying to do something that ain't quite right, as she put on the list, church is off the table.
Well, the other thing that's happening with these Instagram dates or whatever is you're not getting in a conversation to figure out, and again, this is why I say that their intent is in marriage, but again, it's like, if you're a serious person, you want to get in a conversation. Is this someone I can build something with?
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Yeah. And even if it doesn't lead to marriage, you may make a connection business-wise that may lead to something for you financially, career-wise, whatever. But again, every engagement with another human being is really an opportunity. And so what kind of opportunities are you looking for? Sex is very cheap, and it's being given away at such a level that it almost has no value anymore. And so what's the greater opportunity? You may, I went out and, with this person, even though we're not a connection here personally, this might be a great asset for me career-wise. She can help me launch my social media business or whatever. Yeah. You'll never find those things out.
You find a good friend.
Yes. Yeah, who may have a sister or a best friend who's the perfect connection for you. But
yes.
Once y'all go on some cheap date and have sex, it's gonna be real hard for her to say, "Hey, you should date my best friend."
Right. and nowadays, with everything going on in the world, I want to connect with someone that's a freedom fighter. Like, where do you stand with all of this foolishness going on in the world? Are you going to be the one to say, "Hey, they're hiding in here," or are you going to be, fighting the same way I'm fighting? That's what I want for my children. Do you want to get with some man who's going to have a child and have no problem with your child being indoctrinated by the alphabet mafia? Like right now with what we're seeing, all of those things come into play. And that is even for just friends. I don't have time for connecting with weak, wussy people with everything going on in the world. If all you want to do is complain and be a victim and you're oppressed, I don't have time for even making those connections on a friend level, because then you're going to want to engage me in conversation that's fruitless. So I think now you really need to spend that time to get to know someone, because time is something you can't get back. And so when you are actually out here just wasting time and living life like nothing matters, you don't know when you're going to clock out of here. And there is a book called Living the Dash, and where it says the date you were born and the date you died don't really matter. It's the dash in between. We need to start being more conscious of the dash, living the dash. What are we doing while we're here? And so I don't even want to connect with people, business, friendship, that are not into what I'm into and going to just waste my time.
We'll end on this note. And Shemeka, don't you jump in here and make a mess out of what I'm about to put on the table, because I'm making a serious point and I don't want you dirtying up with a joke. So the dating approach that these women are to $200-300 and don't take me here, don't take me there. There's no real agenda to have a conversation. And that's how you end up having babies by guys like Dwight Howard, who's got a bunch of babies' mamas, but's in a sexual assault case with a man. And if some of the women that sit around and complain about, I got a baby by closeted, whatever, that's because you didn't take any time to find out who you were dating. Because again, trust me, people tell on themselves.
They do.
All the time. If you will listen, if you realize you have 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth, that means 4 times as much listening and observing as talking. That's how we're designed. If God wanted us to have 2 mouths, he would have put one in the back of our heads. Again, this is his design. 1 mouth, 2 eyes, 2 ears. If you'll listen, these men and women tell all of their business if you listen. All of it. And so whoever's got a baby by Dwight Howard, it's because you didn't listen. Because he would have told you exactly who he is. That's why you need to take a more serious approach to dating. And you know, if you want to really, you know, these other, they should just literally just come out of the closet and start an OnlyFans, if that's, because that's all they really about. Thank you, Shemeka. If you enjoyed this segment, please hop in the comments. Let us know what you think. If you really enjoyed this segment, support one of our great sponsors like Patriot Mobile. Disconnect from the cell phone services that don't support your values. Patriot Mobile does. Go to patriotmobile.com/Jason or call 878-PATRIOT. That's it for us. Cue up some harmony, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Up so divided, stop fighting and stand tall. We used to be a nation, one united. Now we're headed for downfall. God, let your light shine down. What we need more than anything now, harmony. Let's make a simple vow. Let's come together now. Harmony. Put all your weapons down. Love one another now. To wake up, choose love, my sister, my brother. See through the lies they tell us, 'cause together we're so much stronger. God, let your light shine down. What we need more than anything now, harmony. Let's make a simple vow. Let's come together now. Harmony. Put all your weapons down. Love one another now. The enemy won't let it get to me. Open up your eyes.